You think Brad Pitt buys aircraft the way most celebrities buy aircraft, something expensive parked at an airport while someone else does the flying. He does not. He holds a private pilot certificate, a multi-engine rating and a rotary wing rating. He trained at the only academy in the world that specializes in transitioning civilian pilots into World War II warbirds. He owns a Supermarine Spitfire, and he flies it. This is the full story of Brad Pitt's aircraft, starting with the one that most people do not know about. Subscribe right now and turn on notifications, because this channel covers the real versions of famous people. Let us start at number 4. The helicopter that proves he is serious about aviation in ways most celebrity pilots never bother with. The Eurocopter AS350 Accurae, marketed as the A-Star B1, is a turbine-powered light utility helicopter operated globally by law enforcement, corporate transport, and high-altitude mountain rescue. It is not a forgiving aircraft for inexperienced pilots. Unlike a fixed-wing aircraft that wants to glide if the engine stops, a helicopter is aerodynamically unstable at all times. It requires continuous and simultaneous independent inputs across 3 separate control axes just to maintain a steady hover. The cyclic controls pitch and roll. The collective controls lift. The anti-torque pedals control yaw. Take any one of those inputs away, or apply any one of them incorrectly, and the aircraft departs controlled flight immediately. There is no passive stability to fall back on, no natural tendency to return to a safe state. The helicopter demands constant active management by the pilot in a way that fixed-wing aircraft simply do not. Auto-rotation, the emergency procedure used when the engine fails, requires the pilot to instantly lower the collective to maintain rotor RPM, establish a precise descent profile, and then flare at exactly the right moment to convert stored rotor energy into a survivable landing. It works, but it requires practice to the point of instinct, and it has to be performed correctly the first time. Pitt holds a rotary wing rating, which means he went through the training required to demonstrate that he understands all 3 axes simultaneously, in all conditions, including that auto-rotation procedure. He was reportedly gifted the A-Star and the private flight lessons required to earn the rating by Angelina Jolie, who by that point had already held her own private pilot certificate for several years. Their son Maddox had also begun taking flight lessons at a young age, establishing aviation as a central part of the family's life before Pitt formalized his own pursuit of it. The helicopter gives him something fixed-wing aircraft cannot: point-to-point travel with no runway required. From a private estate directly to a film set, from a city center to a remote location. No airport, no commercial terminal, no waiting. The A-Star is a tool of absolute logistical independence, and mastering it required him to start from zero in a discipline that has nothing in common with fixed-wing flying. He started from zero. That tells you what kind of pilot he is. But the next aircraft on this list is where the progression to something genuinely extraordinary begins. At number 3, the jet he flies for business, and why holding a citation-type rating matters more than most people realize. Brad Pitt's formal flight training began around 2006. He holds a private pilot certificate under the name William Bradley Pitt, with airplane single-engine land privileges. His medical certification was noted as issued in early 2005. From there, he expanded to a multi-engine rating, qualifying him to operate twin-engine aircraft, and then to the type rating for the Cessna 500 citation. The Cirrus SR-22 was his early aircraft of choice, a modern composite construction single-engine aircraft with a glass cockpit, digital navigation, real-time weather data link, and a ballistic whole airframe parachute system that can lower the entire aircraft safely to the ground in the event of catastrophic failure. The SR-22 is designed to reduce pilot workload to the minimum. Synthetic vision shows the terrain outside even when the pilot cannot see it. The tricycle landing gear makes the aircraft stable on the ground and easy to control during takeoff and landing. It is the most technologically protected environment a civilian pilot can occupy. It is the exact opposite of a Spitfire in every meaningful way. Moving from the SR-22 to the Cessna 500 citation required Pitt to step into the world of jet operations. A type rating for a twin-engine jet of this class requires formal airline-style simulator training, a comprehensive oral examination, and a flight test conducted under the same standards applied to commercial airline pilots. He holds that rating. He operates a Cessna 500 Citation and a Gulfstream 4 for longer intercontinental trips. The Gulfstream 4 runs twin Rolls-Royce Tay turbofans and carries up to 19 passengers. It is a machine designed for high-altitude, high-speed global transit in all weather. Automation, redundancy, pressurization, autopilot, digital navigation. A machine built to remove the pilot from direct physical engagement with the environment and replace it with systems management. He flies both. The same pilot who holds a type rating on a Gulfstream heavy jet also trained in a tailwheel biplane before being allowed into the cockpit of a Second World War fighter. That range is not accidental. It is the result of a methodical, deliberate progression through every category of aviation that his collection demands. Keep watching, because number 2 is the acquisition that nobody expected, and number 1 is the aircraft that changes how you think about everything that came before it. At number 2, the tank that came before the Spitfire, and why it matters for understanding how he thinks. In 2011, Brad Pitt filmed World War Z in Budapest. The production used a Soviet T-54 tank as a background prop. When filming concluded, Pitt bought it. He arranged the logistics of shipping a multi-ton Cold War-era main battle tank from Hungary to Los Angeles. The T-54 is the most produced main battle tank in history. Approximately 110,000 units manufactured. Frontal armor between 100 and 120 millimeters thick, developed at the end of the Second World War as a marked improvement over the T-34. The T-54 was designed for the harshest operational environments on Earth, eventually including nuclear, biological, and chemical protection systems. Buying it required navigating specialized heavy transport, the sourcing of obscure Soviet-era mechanical components, and distinct import regulatory classifications that most people would use as reasons not to bother. He bothered. His involvement in armored vehicles did not stop there. During a late 2020 auction of a World War II M4A1 Grizzly variant of the American Sherman tank, industry speculation suggested Pitt was among the primary bidders, fueled by his portrayal of a Sherman tank commander in Fury. Whether or not that is accurate, the pattern is clear. This is a man who, when he becomes genuinely interested in a piece of mechanical history, does not buy a photograph of it. He buys the machine. He accepts the maintenance burden. He accepts the logistical complexity. He takes responsibility for the object itself. The tank was the proof of concept. The Spitfire was the logical conclusion. Drop the word Spitfire in the comments right now if you are still watching. Just that word, it helps this channel more than you know. At number 1, the aircraft he bought for £3.3 million, stored in Somerset, trained for at Oxford, and took solo over the English countryside. In late 2013, as production of the World War II film Fury concluded in the United Kingdom, Brad Pitt purchased a Supermarine Spitfire Mark 9. The reported price was £2 million, approximately $3.3 million to $4 million at the prevailing exchange rate. The Spitfire Mark 9 was developed in 1942 as an emergency response to the Focke-Wulf VA Fort 190, a German fighter that had appeared over France and immediately outclassed every Spitfire variant then in service. The solution was to take the existing Spitfire Mark V airframe and install the more powerful Rolls-Royce Merlin 61, a two-stage supercharged V12 producing over 1,500 horsepower. The result was an aircraft capable of exceeding 400 miles per hour in level flight, a top speed more than twice what Pitt had ever experienced in the Cirrus SR-22. The aircraft was so effective that it remained in frontline RAF service from 1942 until the end of the war. The aircraft was stored in a secure hangar facility in Somerset, England, not in Los Angeles, not in a convenient location near a film set. In Somerset, because Somerset is near the infrastructure that keeps a Spitfire airworthy, the specialized mechanics, the bespoke parts fabricators, the aerodynamic restoration experts who understand a Rolls-Royce Merlin engine not as a historical curiosity, but as a working machine with specific failure modes that need to be managed in real time. Out of more than 20,000 Spitfires manufactured during the Second World War, approximately 55 remain airworthy globally today. That number is not growing. Every year, the parts supply for the Merlin engine depletes. Every year, the pool of mechanics with direct experience working on these airframes contracts. Every year, the window for keeping them flying gets smaller. The market reflects this. By the time of writing, the valuation of a fully restored airworthy Spitfire Mark IX had risen to between £3.5 million and £4.25 million, an asset that appreciates but only if it is maintained at extraordinary cost. Engine overhaul every 500 flight hours, £120,000. Annual insurance premium, £30,000 minimum. Fuel at 40 gallons per hour of cruise flight. These numbers do not include the periodic structural inspections, the non-destructive testing of wing spars, or the replacement of components that are now 8 decades old and exist in no catalogue anywhere in the world. They have to be fabricated from scratch. That is what Pitt funds, and before he ever flew it, he went to school. The Boltby Flight Academy in Oxford is the only institution in the world that specializes in transitioning civilian pilots into vintage military warbirds. Their process does not begin in the Spitfire. It begins in a tailwheel biplane, something light enough that the mistakes a new tailwheel pilot makes can be absorbed by the aircraft rather than destroying it. Then progression to the North American T6 Texan, the Harvard, a heavy, high-powered radial engine trainer designed in the 1940s specifically to simulate the ground handling, the mechanical complexity, and the weight of a frontline fighter. The Harvard is unforgiving of sloppy rudder inputs. It punishes inattention on the landing rollout. It requires the pilot to develop the instinctive footwork that a Spitfire will demand under significantly higher pressure. Only after demonstrating proficiency in the Harvard does Boltby permit a student to enter the Spitfire's cockpit. Pitt completed that progression. He earned the sign-off. He flew the Spitfire. The aerodynamics of the aircraft are nothing like any modern aircraft he had previously operated. The Spitfire Mark IX uses a tailwheel configuration, center of gravity behind the main landing gear, inherently unstable on the ground. Any deviation from the runway centerline during the takeoff roll creates a moment arm that will rotate the tail forward in a violent ground loop if the pilot does not correct it immediately and precisely with rudder. The undercarriage track on the Spitfire is narrow. Crosswind landings require full concentration and immediate corrections. There is no tailwheel steering. Ground directional control comes from differential braking and careful use of engine thrust. The Rolls-Royce Merlin produces immense torque on takeoff. Combined with asymmetric propeller thrust and gyroscopic precession, the aircraft yaws hard left the moment full power is applied. Correcting this requires heavy right rudder input that has to happen before the yaw develops, not after. The cockpit gives the pilot no automation to fall back on, no autopilot, no digital flight management, no synthetic vision, analog gauges, pneumatic lines, mechanical linkages, a pilot managing manifold pressure, propeller pitch, airspeed, thermal loads, and landing gear while simultaneously managing the aerodynamic forces that are trying to take the aircraft somewhere he did not instruct it to go. Pitt went through all of it. The aviation community's initial reaction to his acquisition was skeptical. Experienced warbird pilots worry when wealthy non-specialists buy irreplaceable historic aircraft. The concern is not irrational. These airframes are not replaceable. When a flying Spitfire is destroyed in an accident, it is gone. The concern shifted as the details of his training became known. He went to Boltby. He did the progression. He stored the aircraft in the UK to keep it within the maintenance ecosystem it requires. He funds the overhauls. He does not treat the aircraft as a display piece. He flies it. One commentator in the warbird community put it accurately. Thanks to Brad Pitt for helping preserve the history of one of the aircraft that saved hundreds of bomber crews' lives. That is not hyperbole. A Spitfire that sits in a museum deteriorates. A Spitfire that flies requires maintenance. Maintenance requires mechanics. Mechanics require funding. Funding requires owners who are committed to the aircraft as a living machine rather than a static trophy. Pitt is that owner. The tank in his garage was the proof of the philosophy. The Spitfire in Somerset is the application of it. Tell us in the comments which aircraft from this collection you would most want to fly in person. And if this is the kind of story you are here for, subscribe.